Recently, I moved from being a bivocational minister into a 9 to 5 ministry position, having an office, having office hours. This is my full-time job. And there's a lot of things that popped up, a lot of questions that I had to answer. How do I reach the people group that I've been called to reach? How do I change from a bivocational minister into full-time ministry? There's a lot of things that I didn't know. How to balance a budget, how to operate a 9 to 5, how to make sure to manage office hours. There's a lot of questions that pop up that confuse me on how to be a pastor that I've had to learn. But see, the biggest question I have always had was, how do I reach effectively the people God has called me to reach? And see, what I've learned is the Acts 2 model, bringing it back to what the church was originally created to be, works in any situation. It works whether you're a big church or a small church. So I want to introduce you to the Acts 2 model. There are 5 key points that you need to focus on for this Acts 2 model. See, if your church has all 5 of these points in it, then it will develop lifelong followers of Jesus. See, the first one is connection. See, if you connect with the people in your community, when they walk in the doors, if they feel greeted, if they feel welcome, when they come into a service, don't let them sit alone. Sit with somebody. Invite somebody to sit with you. Have them connect to a community that wants to impart in them. See, connection is one of the very first points of bringing people into the church. It is the first impression that somebody is going to get when they visit your church, and it is so important and vital that they feel welcomed and cared for. If you do that, the second one, is growth, or to grow. See, we're not called to just be in church. We're called to grow. We are called to make disciples of all nations. That means that we need to disciple people that come into the church. Make sure they're not just stagnating as baby Christians, but they have opportunities and classes to go to where they can grow, where they can develop into the full disciples that God has called us to be. And the way you know how they've matured as a disciple is that they are able to replicate themselves. See, disciples replicate and make more disciples. And that's what God has called us to do in this world. The third one is worship. See, worship is when we're pouring out our true adoration to the Lord, our love for God. This is why we meet on a Sunday, to grow, but also to worship the Lord and recenter our ministry on who we're doing this for and why we are doing it. As Pastor Choco said in a lesson that I learned, he said that there is true worshipers and there's fake worshipers, as seen in the Christmas story. See, the Magi were true worshipers. They came and they brought something that cost them something inside. They brought a worship that mattered. It was inconvenient and it cost them something, but that is the worship that we want to have in our church. We don't want this fake worship like Herod did, where he said, hey, go tell me where they are. Go tell me where this Messiah is so I can worship him too. And he was only worried about what he could get out of it. He wanted to secure his spot. See, we want true worship in our church services. Oh, these papers are hard to turn. I apologize. Here we go. Second to last is serve. See, we are not called to do the whole ministry as pastors. In fact, we are called to equip and build up the church to do ministry as well. If we're the only ones doing ministry as the pastor, then we are not going to be as effective as we could if we bring alongside our fellow churchgoer and train them up to do ministry as well. I can only have so much impact, but if the whole church is having the impact that Jesus has called us to have, then our church is going to grow. It's going to reach people. It's going to develop lifelong followers of Jesus. Why? Because it's a team. It is not a one-person show. And the last one is go. See, this is the core heart of ministry. Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. God told us to take his good news of salvation to everyone. Go is the mandate that God has given us. And as a church, we cannot stagnate and stay focused on our community, but we must go into the community around us and reach them for the gospel. So to wrap it up, an Acts 2 church will operate like it's written in the book of Acts. A new believer will find a place to belong, will be transformed by the Holy Spirit and by discipleship, will express their adoration and devotion to God, will start using their gifts to serve God and the church, and will go and tell others what God has done in their life, replicating the entire process. If we stick to this model, I'm not saying that you won't have to figure things out or have spiritual leading and guiding, but it will help your church not to stagnate.